All right, we are getting close to the end. We've laid the foundation for why the grading method matters. We've gone over the essential components of effective feedback, and we've shared the details of the grading method itself and how that looks in the classroom. Now, I'd like to share some additional grading strategies, some other ways to provide quick feedback for student writing, and additional ways to assess student work without assigning or grading writing at all. I'm sure many of you use some of these strategies already, but I hope you'll be able to find some new ideas you can utilize right away in your classroom. One particular study focuses on efficient grading practices, provides a way to give feedback on grammatical errors. Instead of marking up a paper with a red pen and listing everything the student does wrong, teachers should simply highlight the errors throughout the paper and then have the students fix those errors. This allows students to go back and have to figure out what was wrong. If they don't know how to fix it, they can consult the teacher. But if they know the problem, it will help prevent them from making the same error in the future. Willingham's strategy is a brilliant way of putting the onus on students to research something they may not know. Having a teacher fix a comma splice for the student isn't actually teaching the student anything. Instead, having the teacher highlight an error makes the student wonder why using a comma in that particular area was incorrect, and it forces them to figure out the problem, while also saving the teacher the time and effort of writing out on the paper why that was a mistake. I love Willingham's strategy, and I also want to remind you, you want to make sure you are being specific with your feedback, that S in STEP. Don't highlight every error. If you taught students how to vary their sentence types or sentence beginnings before assigning writing, then only highlight errors or issues with that particular issue. Don't highlight every grammatical mistake they've made, or it's going to be counterproductive to their learning. Another strategy I found particularly compelling in my research is the idea of using student questions to guide teacher comments. Once again, this is an effort to put the onus on the students for their learning, going back to student-centered classrooms. If students can provide their teachers with guiding questions, teachers know how to provide specific feedback that the student desires. For instance, if a student has a hard time formulating a clear and focused thesis statement, they can write that on the paper when they submit it to the teacher. Then the teacher can use that question as a guide to provide feedback about the thesis statement and overall focus of the paper. This is yet another way to provide specific and actually meaningful feedback for your students while saving the teacher the time of writing superfluous comments. Additionally, feedback in this manner could be done in the form of writing conferences, meeting with students individually to go over their concerns and where they want to grow in their writing. Another way to think outside of the box in terms of providing effective writing feedback involves immediate in-class feedback, group projects completed in class, and peer review. Anderson explores some of these effective methods. One of these strategies involves what Anderson calls the teach-test technique, which involves a weekly class test being given routinely, during which the teacher tours the class, observing work and giving support and advice on request. Impromptu remedial explanations are given on the spot. Giving feedback immediately saves teachers time from having to take the work home, while also providing students that timely feedback that is so crucial to student learning. Oftentimes, teachers feel the need to always grade the written work at home and in their own time. But why not read student papers while they're writing them in order to help them during the actual writing process? I would often use a strategy in the beginning of the year when students are working on building the foundational skills for their writing. When I assigned a writing task, I'd go around, read student work, and talk with them quietly while they worked. This is also a great way to build relationships and rapport in your classroom and help improve students' confidence in their writing abilities. Going further with the idea of grading in class, Anderson also encourages the use of group work. He says, providing group work is compatible with the aims of assessment in a particular case. It can often be most efficient and economic if group assessment tasks are done and marked in class time. A seminar group, for instance, can handle a question in class by collaboratively drafting answers. The result can then be appraised in class. Group presentations can be an effective way of grading students on their organizational skills, literary analysis, and overall depth of knowledge. Teachers can require each student to have a thesis statement for his or her particular topic, which the teacher can then assess immediately in class. If teachers provide the feedback on a Google document while the students are presenting, they can share that feedback right away with the students, which then allows incredibly timely and immediate feedback without the teacher taking any work home to grade. I would often assign group presentations, and I'd be able to give detailed feedback during class that I could immediately share with the group members. I'd also make sure to assess whichever skills I was working on building in that unit. If we were working in class on organizing ideas effectively, I'd focus on giving feedback about the organization of their presentation, how they used effective transitions, and the best way to connect their ideas together within their individual part of the presentation, as well as among the group as a whole. It was a valuable way to provide timely, specific feedback without having to take any grading home. I provided a few resources with different group presentations I've assigned that you could tailor to your needs, along with some documents that I actually used to provide feedback to students. Going along with group presentations and the idea of assessing students during class time, Socratic seminars and Harkness discussions are valuable ways of completing the same goal of providing feedback immediately without bringing grading home. These types of discussions can be graded instantly in class, and teachers can easily assess a student's depth of knowledge about a certain topic in one of these seminars. Socratic seminars have been around for years and years, but Harkness discussions were something I was introduced to just a few years ago. I've included instructions for both Socratic seminars and Harkness discussions in case you'd like to review the differences, and I've also included a variety of rubrics I use for both depending on what skills I want to assess. Anderson continues his work further, confronting some common conceptions of always having students write full-blown essays, instead arguing that short answers, lists, synopses, and outlines can be used to replace extended essays in many cases. If we critically inspect what really needs to be assessed in our subject, this might only be a portion of what would be demonstrated in a full, completed essay. I mentioned this in a previous episode, how shorter pieces of writing, like literary analysis paragraphs, are often overlooked in favor of writing full-length essays. Interestingly enough, this exact concept was echoed by an IB teacher who taught a coursework training in Atlanta a few summers ago. This teacher was revered and respected in the IB world, and she has her students write essay outlines for their in-class essays instead of writing full essays. She argues that she's able to see the student's organization, thought process, and depth of literary analysis just as well in an essay outline as in a full essay. Yet again, this is a fascinating way of thinking outside of the box in terms of both assigning student writing and providing feedback on that writing. One of our colleagues introduced us to the fill-in-the-blank paragraph. In these paragraphs, students were graded on just one writing skill. Let's say that skill was textual evidence. The students were given a paragraph that was already completed, but the evidence was missing. The students had to find the best textual evidence to complete the paragraph. This allowed the teacher to focus on assessing a student's ability to gather appropriate textual evidence without spending the time reading through the entire paragraph. For the times you feel the need to comment on student work, in addition to providing models and using other feedback techniques, Turnitin has a valuable tool for providing written feedback. During my early years of teaching, I'd find myself writing the same comments on student work. It was repetitive and time-consuming, and I got annoyed with myself. Turnitin.com has a feature where you can create canned comments and drag them onto the student paper. So I created a bank of common feedback comments I'd make on student papers, and then it was easy to drag the comment onto the paper instead of retyping the entire thing times 140. This saved an enormous amount of time. One of my colleagues, Raylan Paquin, took this even further when she began teaching college writing courses. Turnitin also has a feature where she can see if students even looked at her feedback. She told her students that she'd only provide written feedback to the students she could see had looked at and read her feedback. I thought this was a brilliant way of providing feedback to students who would read it and actively use it. Overall, there are numerous ways to assess students beyond using the grading method and beyond even assigning writing. The goal of this program is to provide you with a variety of methods to assess students, all of which are aimed to save you time and energy while adhering to what the research shows to be best practices and providing student feedback without sacrificing student growth. If you subscribe to our emails or if your district has purchased a subscription, we will continue to offer resources and teaching strategies that we find that adhere to our core beliefs of effective and efficient feedback methods. We are so excited to continue on this journey with you.